Last week's events, including Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen's meeting with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and China's meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron, heightened tensions on the global stage as political leaders formed new partnerships and distanced themselves from others. TVBS commentator Wen Qiyu assessed cross-strait relations and U.S.-China competition with global political risk consultant and Eurasia Group president Ian in the latest edition of TVBS Meeting Room.
Let's start with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen's visit with the U.S. House Speaker McCarthy last week. Was it a big deal?
Let's be clear. If you want to talk about what's making U.S. news vis-a-vis China in the last week, it was the McCarthy meeting. But on the global stage, there were lots of things that were more important. The fact that it happened in the U.S., that McCarthy backed away from a trip to Taipei, and then the fact that the Chinese were much more incremental in the escalation that they took diplomatically, economically, and militarily to response compared to what they did when Speaker Pelosi made that trip last year. I think all of those things make the point that a lot is happening on the global stage right now, and the Americans aren't driving as much as they used to.
Macron's comments during the China meeting urging the EU to avoid getting caught up in a crisis that is not their own have sparked global debate. Despite rising U.S.-China tensions, businesses may not choose sides or subscribe to the warring mentalities between the two big powers.
There's the performative aspect of a hard line on anything involving China, on treating China as the enemy, as opposed to a country that is sometimes an adversary, sometimes a competitor, and sometimes a friend. And that's that reality, that gap in the United States absolutely concerns investors. Now, the challenge that Taiwan is going to have, not to mention the fact that China is getting more powerful in the region, and you've got Macron and others that are questioning, is also that TSMC is becoming politicized. It's the most strategically important company in the world. If Taiwan goes from TSMC is the most important strategic company in the world for both mainland China and the US to TSMC has to put fabs in the United States and its allies that are high performance, and that China's going to build their own, well, suddenly the status quo has been changed in ways that make Taiwan much more vulnerable to economic and military escalation.
What are your top 3 predictions in the next 18 months or so in the world?
I would say that even if we talk a lot less about Ukraine in 18 months, we're going to talk more about Russia. So Russia is going to be much more of a danger as the most powerful rogue state on the global stage for the West that we've seen in history. That's number one. Number two, I think Trump will probably get the nomination, and that means that the 2024, the GOP, which means the GOP will have to align underneath him. And that means that the 2024 presidential election will be every bit as divisive, maybe more so than 2020. And the Americans will, the impact of that on the way other countries look at the United States and the level of consistency of U.S. policy, commitment of U.S. policy, I think will be open to question once again.
Bremer predicts China's global influence will continue to expand, and the EU may struggle to maintain unity against Russia while pursuing economic opportunities with China. Wen Qiyu, Vivian Xiao, TVBS World Taiwan.
All right. You think Donald Trump is going to win?